The night my former boss's restaurant lost its third Michelin star, I was in the kitchen of my own restaurant, watching the live stream of the ceremony on my phone. When they announced that Lumiere had been downgraded, my sous chef Elena looked up from the delicate dessert she was plating and caught my eye. "Is that satisfaction or guilt I see on your face, chef?" she asked. I switched off my phone and tucked it into my pocket. "Neither. Professional interest, that's all." She didn't believe me. No one who knew my history with Xavier Laurent would have believed me, but the truth was more complicated than simple revenge. 5 years earlier, I had been Xavier's second-in-command at Lumiere, the crown jewel of his culinary empire. I'd given him 8 years of my life, working 16-hour days, perfecting his recipes, maintaining his impossible standards, all while he took the credit. Xavier Laurent, celebrated chef, media darling, terror of the kitchen. The man who had both made and destroyed my career. The dish that ultimately came between us, Crescent Moon, he called it, was a deceptively simple plate. Seared scallops with a saffron emulsion, accented by a complex reduction I had developed over months of experimentation. Xavier had watched me create it, tasting each iteration, offering minor adjustments, but the soul of the dish was mine. When Food and Wine declared it the most innovative seafood presentation in a decade, and credited Xavier exclusively, I made the mistake of confronting him. "This is my dish," I said quietly as we stood in his office after service. "You know it's my dish." Xavier had looked at me with cold amusement. "Your dish? In my restaurant? Using ingredients I pay for? With techniques I taught you?" He shook his head. "There are no individual achievements in my kitchen, Madeleine. Everything here belongs to Lumiere, to me." I might have accepted that if he had at least acknowledged my contribution privately. Instead, he began taking credit for the inspiration, claiming in interviews that the dish came to him in a dream of the Mediterranean coast. 2 weeks later, I gave my notice. Xavier's response was swift and devastating. "Leave if you must," he said, his French accent thickening as it always did when he was angry. "But understand this, you will never work in a serious kitchen in this city again." I thought he was exaggerating his influence. He wasn't. Within a month, every promising job opportunity mysteriously evaporated. Executive chef position at the Harbinger? We decided to go in a different direction. So chef at Tableau? The position has been filled internally. Even a consulting job developing menus for a hotel chain was pulled at the last minute. Xavier had blacklisted me thoroughly. After 6 months of unemployment, I took the only job I could find. Line cook at an airport restaurant, churning out mediocre omelets and overdone steaks for travelers who couldn't tell the difference. At night, I experimented in my tiny apartment kitchen, refining techniques, developing recipes, and planning. The inheritance from my grandmother came unexpectedly, not a fortune, but enough to consider opening a small place of my own. The only problem: Xavier's influence extended to investors and banks as well. No one would take a chance on the chef who had dared to leave the great Xavier Laurent. That's when June Kim entered my life. I was catering a gallery opening, a side gig I'd taken to make ends meet, when June approached me about a small puff pastry I filled with caramelized shallots and thyme. "This is remarkable," she said, taking another from the tray. "The balance of textures, the restraint with the filling. Who are you?" June turned out to be a successful tech entrepreneur with a passion for food and a particular dislike for culinary emperors with more ego than innovation, as she put it. When I told her my story, she didn't hesitate. "Let's open a restaurant," she said. "Your food, my money, no interference. I've been looking for an investment that matters." 3 months later, Find was born, a tiny 28-seat restaurant in a neighborhood just beginning to gentrify. No white tablecloths, no elaborate tasting menus, just thoughtfully prepared food with clean flavors and perfect execution. June insisted we keep my involvement quiet until we were established. "Xavier has a long reach," he warned. "Let the restaurant build its reputation before he realizes you're behind it." It was a wise precaution. We opened with little fanfare, but word spread quickly. A favorable write-up in a local blog led to attention from the city paper. Soon we were booked solid weeks in advance. I stayed in the kitchen, avoiding publicity, letting the food speak for itself. 8 months after opening, the New York Times restaurant critic visited anonymously. His review, titled "Revelation in Simplicity," called Fime the most exciting new restaurant in the city, and praised the invisible chef whose technical mastery is matched only by their restraint and clarity of vision. That review changed everything. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know who was behind Fime. Food magazines requested interviews. TV producers called. Through it all, I remained in the background, with June as the public face of the restaurant. "It's killing Xavier," June reported after attending an industry event. "Fime is all anyone's talking about, and he can't figure out who's in the kitchen." A year after opening, we received our first Michelin star. 6 months later, unprecedented for a new restaurant, we received our second. The mystery around the unnamed chef only fueled interest. Speculation ran wild. Was it a famous chef working incognito? A culinary prodigy discovered by June Kim? All the while, Lumiere began to struggle. Xavier, distracted by his growing television career and new restaurants in Las Vegas and London, was spending less time in his flagship kitchen. Reviews noted inconsistency, dishes that felt dated rather than classic, service that had become perfunctory rather than perfect. I took no pleasure in his troubles. Despite everything, I respected what Xavier had built. He was a gifted chef who had lost his way, prioritizing empire over excellence. The night before the Michelin announcements, June came to me with a proposition. "It's time," she said. "Tomorrow, after the announcements, we reveal who you are." The chef who left Xavier was blacklisted and built something extraordinary from nothing. The narrative is perfect. I hesitated. And if Xavier retaliates? He can't touch us now. We're too successful, too beloved. Besides, she smiled, I have a feeling tomorrow's announcements may humble him significantly. She was right. The live stream I watched in my kitchen confirmed what industry rumors had suggested. Lumiere, after 15 years with 3 Michelin stars, had been downgraded to 2. And Fime, against all expectations for such a young restaurant, had been awarded its 3rd star. That night, after service, I gathered our small staff. They knew who I was, of course, but had kept the secret faithfully. Tomorrow, I told them, my name goes public as the chef and owner of Time. There may be attention, controversy even, but nothing changes in this kitchen. We cook the same food, with the same standards, for the same reasons. Elena raised her glass of shift drink to Chef Madeline Harper, finally getting the recognition she deserves. The others cheered, but I felt strangely conflicted. Success was sweet, yes, but I had never wanted it at Xavier's expense. I had simply wanted recognition for my work, the freedom to cook my food my way. The next morning, June orchestrated the revelation perfectly, an exclusive interview with the same magazine that had praised Xavier's version of my dish years before. By noon, my phone was ringing constantly. By evening, the story had gone viral in culinary circles. Blacklisted chef behind 3-star Thyme revealed. I expected anger from Xavier, perhaps legal threats. What I didn't expect was to find him waiting outside the restaurant after service, sitting alone at the small table we kept on the sidewalk for guests to wait for their reservations. "May I speak with you, Madeline?" he asked, standing as I emerged. He looked older, more tired than the last time I'd seen him. I considered refusing, but curiosity won out. I nodded toward a nearby all-night diner. Not here. In the harsh fluorescent light of the diner, Xavier looked out of place in his expensive suit. He ordered coffee, then sat silently for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "I was wrong," he finally said, words I never expected to hear from him. "About many things, but especially about you." I waited, unwilling to make this easier for him. "Your dish, crescent moon. I should have acknowledged your creation. I told myself it was how kitchens work, that I had done the same under other chefs when I was young. But it was different." He looked down at his coffee. "I was threatened by you, by your talent. So I tried to diminish you, then destroy you when that didn't work." "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because Lumiere lost a star? Because Thyme gained one? Because I tasted your food," he said simply. "I came to Thyme 2 months ago, anonymously. I knew within 3 bites that it was you in the kitchen. No one else combines technical precision with such emotional clarity." He paused. "Your crab with brown butter and preserved lemon. It made me remember why I became a chef." I was speechless. The dish he mentioned was one I was particularly proud of, a study in simplicity that required perfect execution. "I lost my way, Madeline. Television, expansion, the constant pressure to remain relevant. I stopped cooking from my heart. That's why Lumiere lost its star, not because you succeeded, but because I failed. What do you want from me, Xavier? Nothing. I came to acknowledge what I should have years ago. You are an exceptional chef. What you've built at Fime, it's pure, honest, brilliant. I wanted to tell you that before the media circus begins. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the table. What's this? I asked, not touching it. A letter to the New York Restaurant Association, the James Beard Foundation, and several other organizations I influenced against you. Admitting what I did and taking full responsibility. You won't need it now, your success speaks for itself. But perhaps it offers some closure. I finally took the envelope, not sure whether to believe him. Why now? Xavier gave a sad smile. Because cooking was always about truth for me before everything else. Your food at Time reminded me of that. I've spent 5 years living a lie about you, about your contributions. It's time for truth. He stood to leave, then paused. The dish, crescent moon. I've removed it from Lumiere's menu. It was always yours, never mine. After he left, I sat in the diner for a long time, turning the envelope over in my hands. 5 years of anger and resentment didn't disappear in a single conversation, but something had shifted. The next morning, as predicted, journalists swarmed Fime. The story was irresistible. The vindicated chef, the spectacular success built from adversity, the fall of the mentor who had tried to destroy her career. Everyone wanted the narrative of revenge. But when asked if satisfactory Fime's success was made sweeter by Lumiere's downgrade, I found myself saying something unexpected. No restaurant loses a Michelin star easily, and no restaurant gains one without extraordinary effort. This isn't a zero-sum game. There's room for many expressions of culinary excellence. 2 weeks later, as the media frenzy was finally subsiding, a package arrived at Fime. Inside was a first edition of Escoffier's Le Guide Culinaire, a culinary text both rare and revered. The inscription read simply, "To Truth and Cooking." Excel. That night, I created a new dish, seared sea scallops with a saffron emulsion and a complex reduction. Crescent Moon, reclaimed. I placed it on Fime's menu with a note, inspired by lessons learned. It became our most requested dish. 6 months later, Elena approached me after service, curiosity in her eyes. The new chef at Lumiere is looking for a sous chef. Word is Xavier is stepping back to focus on his original restaurant, trying to earn back that 3rd star. But for him, I said, meaning it. There's more, she hesitated. He asked specifically if he might recommend someone from Fime's kitchen. Said he wants to build a team that cooks with the kind of honesty he experienced here. I considered this as I wiped down my station. What do you think? Interested in the position? Elena looked surprised. You'd let me go? To Xavier's restaurant? I'd support you pursuing any opportunity that helps you grow, I said. That's something I had to learn the hard way. True mentorship means celebrating when your people succeed, not controlling their journey. The following week, I did something I never imagined doing. I had dinner at Lumiere, sitting alone at a corner table. Xavier came out briefly, our eyes met, and he gave a small nod of acknowledgement before returning to his kitchen. The food was different, more focused, more personal than the last time I'd eaten there. I could taste his renewed commitment in every dish. When dessert arrived, it wasn't on the menu. A perfect miniature rendering of Time's signature chocolate tart with rosemary caramel. The note with it read, "The secret ingredient was always truth. Thank you for the reminder." As I left the restaurant, I realized the greatest revenge would have been to see Xavier fail. But the greater victory was this: 2 chefs cooking with honesty, 2 restaurants pushing each other toward excellence, and the knowledge that my success hadn't come at the cost of my integrity. June met me for a late drink after my dinner. So, how was the enemy's camp? I swirled the wine in my glass. There are no enemies in this story, June, just chefs finding their way back to what matters. She studied me for a moment. You know, when I invested in Fime, I partly did it because I loved the revenge narrative, the underdog triumphant. And now? Now I think the best revenge wasn't showing Xavier up. She raised her glass. It was showing him, and yourself, what's possible when you cook with complete freedom and truth. Truth. The word Xavier and I both kept circling back to. In an industry built on transformation and illusion, on turning simple ingredients into transcendent experiences, perhaps truth was the most elusive ingredient of all. The following year, when the Michelin stars were announced, both Thyme and Lumiere received 3 stars. The food media tried to reignite the rivalry narrative, but neither Xavier nor I played along. Instead, we did something that shocked the culinary world. A collaborative dinner, 6 hands with Elena, now his executive sous chef, alternating courses that told the story of influence, separation, and reconciliation through food. The final course was a duo of desserts placed side by side. His interpretation of my signature chocolate tart, my interpretation of this famous oeuf flottant. Different expressions, equal respect. As the last guest departed, Xavier and I stood in Thyme's kitchen, the space where I had rebuilt my career from the ashes of his betrayal. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For being better than I was, for showing me it was possible to cook with both ambition and integrity." He gestured around the kitchen. "You've created something remarkable here, Madeline. Not just the food, but the culture, the truth." I thought about the journey from ambitious young chef to bitter outcast to vindicated success. None of it had gone as planned, yet somehow the result was more satisfying than any revenge could have been. "The secret ingredient," I said, echoing his note from months before, "was always truth." As Xavier left, I remained in my kitchen, running my hands over the smooth countertops, the well-used equipment, the space that had become my canvas for honest expression. The revenge narrative would have ended with Xavier's downfall and my triumph. But the truth was more complex, more nourishing. 2 chefs who had lost their way finding it again, through conflict and reconciliation. In the culinary world, as in life, the most powerful transformations happen not when we destroy our adversaries, but when we rediscover our authentic voice, that unique, irreplaceable perspective that no one can take from us, not even those who once tried to silence it. The next morning, I began developing a new dish, one that would appear on both our menus simultaneously. Full circle, we would call it. A celebration not of victory or defeat, but of the journey that brought us both back to the truth at the heart of our vocation. After all, in cooking as in life, the most important ingredient is the one you can't see on the plate, the integrity with which it was created.